Give us a couple of stories of you in Japan.
Well, I don't know, see, it's always a long time. It feels like you're there, and sounds crazy. At least when I say it and I hear it in my head, it sounds crazy to me. But I'm telling you, the air is different there. I know, and I know that doesn't make any sense. But as soon as I get there, I feel it. It just feels different,
Hmm.
and that's on my mind the whole time because air is pretty important, you know. So most of the time we're spent on a bus. You know, they have a really nice like Greyhound type bus, but it's not. You know, when it's set up, it's got a refrigerator and stuff in it, and they got the same setup that they have for like you sit in the same seat all the time. And when I worked for Tenure for war, the Americans sat in the front of the bus and the young boys sat behind us, and then the older Japanese guys sat in the back. And we would just watch videos all the time on the bus. They had VCR TV set up, and you know that's where you do all your bonding on that uh, on the trips, you know, because they're long and you got nothing to do. And they're just like my best times were probably on the bus. Like we used to watch Grease, and me and Jericho and John would sing along with the songs, do little dance routines and shit in the aisle just because we were losing our minds, bored, and everybody thought we were nuts, but we were having a good time, you know. The craziest thing that ever happened to me in Japan, me and John were working against two guys, and I don't remember their names, and it was the middle of the afternoon on like a Sunday, and they had a fucking earthquake while we were in the ring. You hear all the people, they rumble like they never make a sound like this any other time, and everybody takes off running. Me and John are standing in the ring. We don't know what's going on. We just stood there, and the proper safety technique is to get in a doorway in case and that protects you from anything falling, I guess, you know. But yeah, that's the craziest thing that ever happened there. There was and that was right after the big earthquake they had down in uh, Osaka. I can't remember. It was huge, you know. We were there, and it destroyed like half the country. That earthquake did, and they were still having aftershocks 3 weeks later when we were there, and that's what this was. And to see all the damage that earthquake did, so all the people were terrified, and it was just like a mad rush. Even the guys we were working with, the referee, everybody took off running. I was in the ring, and John was on the apron. We just stood there looking at each other, and it took a minute to figure out what was going on.
You didn't even know what kind of danger you might have been in, huh?
Like it took a minute to register that they were having an earthquake because that's just not something you're thinking about, you know. And I that's the only one I was ever in. So, and like I said, it took like I was dumbfounded, like what the fuck is going on? Now you would immediately go mass shooter and panic and go that way if you've seen everybody running. But then there was no real danger that we could think of, you know, and we were dumbfounded and nobody got hurt, thank God. And but it ended the show. So, and that was like that trip. We were there for 21 days right after that. 96 or 7 of it was no 95 or so, I'm guessing. It was a huge earthquake, man. And so we were on the bus sometimes 20 hours at a time because all the roads were tore up and stuff, and there was no easy way to get anywhere. And the poor bus driver, the one guy, drove us everywhere the whole time, you know.
And yeah, Boston's not really known for its earthquakes or anything like that.
One night in Atlanta, in the middle of the night, I was awakened by an earthquake that was real small, and I didn't even know what it was until the next morning when Disco or somebody asked me if I felt the earthquake. My dogs were growling, and I was like, "What the hell's going on?" It lasted a few seconds, and that was the end of it. No, this thing in Japan was about 20 seconds long, which is a long time.
Wow. And so
And I'm not kidding. The entire building screamed and ran to the exits. So that was a big, that's the most memorable thing I have from there, you know.
and during your war days, name some of the guys that would have been on the bus with you.
Warlord, me, John, and Warlord were a 6-man team. Jericho, Vampiro, try to think who else was there. Because they had their regular group of guys, you know.
Backlund was there, right?
Who?
Bob
Oh,
Backlund.
one time. Well, I can tell you that. Bob Backlund was a very serious No, like just very serious individual. It was summer and it must have been 100 degrees. John, my partner was on the bus literally in his underwear. That's how hot it was. Backlund came on the bus and he walked up to Tenru in a three-piece suit. He goes, "Excuse me, Mr. Tenru, it's a little warm and I'm going to unbutton my top button if that's okay." That's how serious and straight-laced Backlund is. And John was high strung, wild as fuck. Backlund every day he had a little electric dictionary, and he would get 5 words and use them in his conversations throughout the day because he was illiterate at one time, and he didn't learn to read and write till he was an adult. So that's something very important to him.
Mm-hmm.
And he was reading a book about Winston Churchill. And John, just trying to be friendly, John goes, "Oh, what are you reading, Bob?" And he goes, "Oh, it's a book about Winston Churchill, the greatest orator that ever lived." And then Bob goes, "Oh, I'm sorry, John, you probably don't know what an orator is." And John goes, "Oh, I don't know who the fuck Winston Churchill is," and walked away. And Backlund never talked to him again the rest of the fucking flight.